attendees. The format for today, so welcome everybody. I think I know everybody on the call, but if I don't, I'll introduce myself. I'm John Louder. I'm the Executive Director for PTAA. I'm happy to welcome you to this Supplier Town Hall. After I do a couple of housekeeping announcements, I will turn it over to Rachel to introduce our panelists. And Stephanie is also, from PTAA, is also on the call with us. And so she and I will hopefully, between the two of us, will not completely screw this up. And if we do screw it up, it's going to be me, not Stephanie. She knows what she's doing. I don't. So she had asked me to review some of our industry resources. Or Stephanie, would you like to do that, since that's kind of your bailiwick?
Sure, I can take that. So for those of you, if you are not familiar yet, if you go to our website, the very first article at the top for the foreseeable future is COVID-19 updates and resources. So when you open that article, we have updates coming in from NAA. It was a little bit more active in the very beginning, where, now mostly we just kind of have a link to NAA. There's also a link to the CDC and to the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, as well as a hotline. In that article, there's a button for industry resources. And when you click on that, at the top, you'll see a list of all of our suppliers who have let us know that they have specifically resources to help with COVID-19 issues. That's also where we have any of our state and local updates going on. So for example, it was just updated this morning to reflect the mask ordinance in Greensboro, and resources for residents. And then finally, you can get to it from the bottom of our page, as well as from a top tab, but there are renter resources that can be shared and distributed with residents as well, for how to get financial help for paying rent and utilities, food, what their rights are, and things like that.
All right, thank you very much. You also find as always on our site, you'll find an updated calendar. As you have all, I'm sure, guessed, we don't have a whole lot on the calendar right now in terms of in-person meetings, but any webinars like this, anything that we can do will be listed on there. So keep an eye on that. We also have our committee meetings listed on there. Committee meetings are ongoing. It just depends on I would reach out to your staff liaison if you're not sure when the committee meetings are. And they are also on the calendar. And I think that's all you're going to hear from us. So it's my pleasure now to turn it over to your PSC president, Rachel Young. Hey Rachel, I got it right. I didn't use your old last name. So
I usually just kind of throw it on at the end of as an afterthought. It was Rachel Garavito, Young.
Young. Okay. Anyway, so it's all yours, Rachel.
Awesome. Thanks so much, John and Stephanie. And thanks for organizing this for us and for the members of PTAA. I am so proud to be your PSC president this year. It has been a roller coaster of one, though. And so I'm really happy to have this opportunity to invite some panelists from our industry to come and talk to us as a group. We have with us Peggy Boland, who is with Real Source Property Management. Hey, Peggy. And we also are joined by Mary Gwynn of Apartment Dynamics. Hello. And Amanda Williams will also be joining us a little bit later. She's running a little bit late, but Amanda is with BSC Holdings. So we wanted to go ahead and get started here with just a couple of questions, general questions about your individual workplaces. So what's been going on the past few months? Anything interesting happening? No?
No.
Yeah.
I'm ready to get back to a new normal.
Yeah, business as usual. So who all is back at the office? Mary?
Well, our offices never technically fully closed. We did operate phase one, so to speak, with locked doors, but our offices have been open for several weeks now, and our maintenance teams are doing occupied service requests. We did stop that, and we did stop our preventive maintenance for a while, but they are all back with masks and with a lot of different, like we followed Amanda, and I wish she were on for this question because she did some great things that we have copycatted. She put tables at her front entrance with big signs saying stop before you enter and giving some instructions, and we copied her and gave it our own spin. We are requiring residents or supplier partners or guests to wear masks and to say they're not sick, and we hope everybody's being good on that. But so we've modified our policies a little bit, but our folks are open and doing a great job and trying to stay safe and keep their customers safe.
Okay, thank you. What about you guys, Peggy?
Our offices are still locked. We are doing tours by appointment only, and we do request that they wear the masks when they come in, and we wear ours as well as gloves. We have work orders were being done on emergency basis only to begin with, but we have since over the last few weeks started going in. We are scheduling work orders and asking the residents either to be in a position to step outside the apartment so we're not having personal contact with the residents, and they do sanitize when they enter the apartment. They sanitize the area to work on. They have their gloves, their masks, their booties, and they do sanitize the area before they leave. But otherwise we just try to schedule at a time, when they're at work or something of that nature. I'm looking forward to fully being able to get back open, but it's going to hurt my feelings if I can't hug and shake hands.
Well, let me ask you this. What about the morale of the staff? Like, so if your teams are open, if your maintenance teams are going into different units and doing preventative maintenance now, how are they feeling about that? And how is your leasing team feeling about that? Mary?
That is such a great question, and I hope you won't mind my waxing long on this. Our teams have really worked hard. They have been quite stressed. In fact, we were doing 3 times a week town halls. As people told us they didn't need that anymore, we went to 2. Now we're down to 1. But we're polling our team members anonymously as we go along. And at some point, about a month ago, we polled our team. We could sense they were stressed. We were hearing from other people in the industry how stressed their team members were. We polled our team and said, if we were to offer free counseling services, would you partake? 50% said they would, and another 23% said they might. So we immediately, by the end of the week, we had an employee assistance program in place, and we do know people are using it because they thanked us for it. It is very stressful. They're on the front line. Plus, like everybody else, it's people wonder, when will it end? And especially as we're hearing that things in North Carolina, at least, are perhaps increasing with problems rather than decreasing. The end is not near. So people are stressed. And if I can throw out, I don't want to take more time, especially with Amanda joining, but I want to tell you how stressful it is for our maintenance team members. We had one just last week. He responded to a service request. The resident knew he was coming, but she was not going to be home. He knocked on the door loudly like we do. He used his key. He figured out he brought the wrong key. He left. He came back, knocked again, had the right key, went in. It was a kitchen sink leak. He was fixing it when he heard police cars pull up. And he went to the door to look and see what was going on, and a police officer was standing with his gun pointed at my team member. And of course, he's like got his shirt and he's got his badge and he's got all this. And it was in one of the counties that had really bad protests. So we thought that was really a foolish thing on the police officer's part. But people are so stressed and so sensitized. And apparently a teenage child was in the apartment, didn't realize mom had scheduled work. She hid in the bathroom, called the police. But people are so stressed and oversensitized, and the police did, in my opinion, did foolish. It's just a stressful time. Our guy is good. We've, offered counseling and all that. And John's already heard this story, as has Amanda, but we're just in a tough time right now. So being extra sensitive is really important. And I apologize for taking too much airtime there.
No, thank you so much for sharing that. What a gut-wrenching story. I hate that.
Yes.
Amanda, I wanted to take a moment really quick to say welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
And I'm glad there's not two of me on the screen anymore. There was two of me for a second, which was kind of odd. Sorry, we were at a construction site, we have a home building company as well. So I was out there and we discovered rock, and you know how much fun that is. So it took a little longer than usual. So sorry about that, but
No, that's okay.
fill me in on where we are, if you don't mind.
Sure. So we were just talking about a rundown of the past few months, who all is back at the office, how your teams are handling the transition back.
Sure.
And Mary was just sharing with us, I had asked about morale of your maintenance team and leasing team. So I was going to ask Peggy next, but why don't you go ahead and let us know how your teams that are on site and on the front lines that are handling this transition?
So we were a little different than everybody else. We never officially closed our offices on site. What we ended up doing is we ended up putting what we call a guest table when you walk in the door. And so nobody's allowed past the guest table except for site staff or maintenance, but we try to keep the maintenance out of the office. And that was a big help. A lot of our team felt like that was a good way to still interact with the public, still interact with our tenants, but keep our staff safe. And then of course we have PPE requirements and all that. With our maintenance teams, we went strictly to emergency only work orders, which is what I think a lot of us did. And we are still only on emergency only work orders. A lot of other groups had decided to switch to full maintenance orders, and our teams just didn't have good feelings about that. And now with the spike in cases more than ever, we are still going to stick to the emergency only maintenance orders. We're still doing tours. We've been doing tours the whole time. We just require PPE, and we like to schedule them ahead of time and do restricted number of folks. So as to the morale of our group, we've all had a big team effort here. We have lots of phone calls. We have we've tried Zoom. We bought lunch for our teams. We've done a lot of different team building things that we can try to do together. And our team has been very thankful and very happy that we have been in constant communication with them and with each other. And of course, as most companies have, we've lost some staff and gained some staff and whatnot. But most of the concern in our group has been about the spread of the disease. And we've had maybe a couple little instances pop up, but we've counteracted them very quickly, honestly, thanks to some advice from the group that we talk with on a daily basis. It was daily, and now it's a couple times a week, but that's been the saver. So we're kind of trying to stick in the same line with everybody else in the industry is doing right now.
All right.
Before you hopped on, Amanda, I was bragging on some stuff we had copied you. Just want you to know. We were talking about it.
Hey, we copied some of your stuff too. So, it's a big group sharing effort.
I was going to say, that's what those calls are about.
I love that. Okay. And Peggy, did you have anything to offer for that?
No, not really. My guys have been great. They've been okay with doing going ahead and taking care of the non-emergency work orders by appointment only, because we have had great success with getting cooperation from the residents for them to not be there or to go drive around the block or whatever the case may be. There was a little scare when we ended up with 3 residents that tested positive. It was nerve wracking to them and they could not quite understand. It's all about giving them the knowledge that they need to understand that it's not as bad as they think. They think we need to go put out a sign, to everybody on the property, we have a positive case, and that's not what we do. So, and it's been fine since. Those guys have recovered. It's been fine. So they're doing good.
Good, I'm glad to hear that. We asked our attendees to submit questions whenever they registered, and this kind of goes along in line of our conversation. So are you moving forward with your outdoor amenities?
Mary, you want to take that one first?
Okay, well, our pools are open, but not as much as our residents want. We are closing them with our office hours, and Peggy and Amanda have both had the benefit, and John, of hearing how that went over at one of our peers' pools. People really want those pools open. In fact, Cindy Claire said that, and I hope that's okay to disclose who it was. Anyway, at one of her pools somewhere, probably not in North Carolina, because everybody follows the rules in North Carolina, but they found on a Sunday evening that because the pool was closed, the residents opened it, had a DJ, had a big party. And yeah, because our residents really are restless too. And so I have my team members, we're thrilled that the governor hasn't opened fitness rooms yet, because we do feel it's going to be a lot of responsibility, and we're not going to be open the hours our residents want, but we have our signs ready unless the wording gets changed. We have our chemicals. What we don't have that we really wish we did was our hydrostatic sprayer or whatever, because if that doesn't come, then our hand cleaning is good in a fitness room, but it's just not as good as being able to hit the unknown touched surfaces in a fitness room. But we just figure we'll open when we can, and we'll do the best we can.
So we had 2 big parties the first weekend. We had somebody threw their wedding reception at one of our apartment community pools, and had, a couple. And then we had, within that same weekend, we had somebody that hired what we call fire throwers that you usually see in Hawaii or something like that. And they were throwing fire next to the clubhouse for entertainment for a family event. So, that's been our excitement on the pools. But our pools are open. We are seeing very minimal capacity at some of our apartment community pools. Some of the more popular ones, we're seeing a little more of occupancy, but we're not having issues with cleaning issues or issues with capacity limitations and stuff like that. So that's worked out really well for us. Fitness centers, of course, are not open, and just like Mary, we're watching what the governor does, but we're a little hesitant about opening them because of the fact of all the cleaning that needs to be done, and making sure that we're going to have it open for the hours that make people happy and whatnot. Our business centers have been open. They get very little use on most properties. And then all of our other common areas that are interior at this point are kind of closed. On our urban buildings, we did allow our loft buildings to have kind of the billiard room open only during business hours. We made the disclosure to our residents, if the rules were not being followed, we were going to shut it down immediately. And then our exterior amenities, our tennis courts, which nobody ever uses, are open. And our putt-putt and our dog parks, and of course our playgrounds, are a no-go right now due to the governor's orders. I did hear yesterday that we're going to have to close one of our pools temporarily for residents not following the rules, just to kind of make a point. So I think it's going to be very short term, but that's where we're at this point. Everything else is depending on what the governor says the next day or two.
I did not know that about dog parks and the playgrounds and stuff, that they were not open at this time. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, we have another attendee question, and that is, what changes do you see with turn season?
We talking conventional or student?
Mhm.
Because we've had a nice.
Choose your own adventure.
So student, as most folks know that do student housing, that all of the leases come up July 31st. And so as Mary was saying, electric static sprayer is huge. We're waiting on ours to come, and we ended up buying some foggers in the meanwhile. Because with student housing, what happens, of course, is all the kids move out at one time, and then they all want to move in 2 days later. And our typical protocol has been to wait 5 days after tenants move out before we let anybody in. And now with student housing, that's not going to be an option. So that electrostatic sprayer is absolutely key. So if anybody knows where you can get one now and not pay $1 million, talk to Wayne, please. Not me.
Talk to all of us.
I'll talk to you, Mary.
All of us.
All of us, because that's not my department, honestly. But on conventional terms, like I said, we've been waiting 5 days, and that has not been an issue before we allow anybody in. And then I think it was Jay, Mary, and Peggy that mentioned yesterday about having the addendum for their vendors to sign that said something about, you know, they don't, and none of their employees have had COVID. They're not been in contact with anybody for COVID. So now we're looking into that because we feel like that's a great liability waiver we need to start looking into.
Oh, that really is. What a great idea. Peggy or Mary, do you guys see anything upcoming with turns?
For me, it's not, because we don't have any student housing, and so it's just been kind of business as usual. We've actually taken the time to go ahead and get in and turn units that that we've been able. When COVID first came out, it was 3 days before my maintenance could go into the apartment even to do the inspection. And then after that, they were going in and doing the turns on those. But I'm not seeing any problems at this point, even though the leasing is picking up, because we currently have like 20 applications pending for apartments. So we've been really, really busy over the last week and a half. But we're renting apartments that are already ready. So we're still trying to stick to, you know, giving a period of time before we go into the apartments.
Was she bragging about all that leasing? Was she bragging there?
You're right, I am.
We also are trying to wait the 3 days if we can, but if something's pre-leased and we have vendor, you know, it's a pretty tight schedule, and it is really impactful on revenue. You know, already most of us delayed rent increases or didn't give rent increases. There were some creative things that Jody Longwell and Jay did, but most of us just didn't do rent increases. And this is when we have the most leases renew. So our revenue's impacted by that. Our revenue's impacted by, you add that extra 3 days, even if your rent's only $900-ish, because I can do the math on that and say your rent's $30 a day times 20 turns in a month. So that then becomes $1,800 you lose just on adding 3 days to the turn, or 5 days like Amanda. It's more than that, but I can't do the math again. And so it's like, if you have that every month for the peak season, it's just more of a hit to our revenue stream, which is already hit by no late fees. Most of us are paying our costs for people to use credit cards and debit cards. A lot of residents are living free, thinking that free is better than paying. So it is impactful. It's all those little things that add up. So, you know, we are modifying our processes. So anything our supplier partners can do to help us with efficiency, we love it. We appreciate it.
Yeah, because there is that extra expense now in buying, you know, disinfecting, cleaners, and then making sure that our staff is going behind the cleaners to make sure that things are, you know, done properly. So if there is any suggestions that don't cost $1 million, you know, I think we're all interested in hearing, because as Mary said, you know, we're getting impacted not only on the expense side, but the income side. And It's not like a, instant you get affected now by the income. And when those leases are renewing, they're 1-year leases. So by not doing that rent increase, which we should be doing, which is about 3 or 4% to cover our expenses, here we are, we're eating that now for another year. And we're hopeful that that tenant is going to be able to continue to maintain their job and source of income to be able to continue to pay us. And if you are a property that under a CARES Act, you can't file eviction right now on anybody either. And that's another, or late fees. And so that's just another challenge if it is a CARES property, which is Fannie, Freddie, or HUD-backed property. Which I think, John, what percentage of our membership that is, but that's, there are some folks in our membership a lot that do have those properties.
Yeah, that was one of the things we learned at the beginning of all this was you'd be surprised how low the percentage is just nationwide of federally backed properties. It works out to about a third of all properties are impacted by CARES. So yeah, it's, in our case, it would probably be something in the range of 75 to 100 properties, I would imagine.
And they're all mine. Seriously, all but 3 of our assets in our whole portfolio are federally insured. They're not HUD loans, but they're federally insured loans, which are very advantageous for certain types of assets. So we're the lucky ones. But even if we could file right now, the courts are closed. And AAMC just sent something out, and it'll probably go out to your members today or tomorrow, that says that the Chief Justice of North Carolina of the Supreme Court said basically when you file, the courts have, the clerks, the sheriffs, the whoever have up to 30 days to schedule a court date. Is that right, John?
Right. So what was normally, I think it was 5 business days, is now 30 days.
Just another time.
Yeah.
And time.
Yeah. Amanda, piggybacking on something that you said about presenting new products to you guys during this time that might help you save money. We had a question from one of the attendees who asked, how do you encourage vendor companies to get in touch with your community teams for new products and services?
We right now would not like any visitors to the property. The only people we're allowing on our property is, like I said, our site staff or prospective tenants. So we would prefer, if you know our director of maintenance, we have 2 of those, 2 guys, we prefer that you reach out to them via email or phone. That would be our preferred method, because we don't like visitors in our corporate office right now either. But I think if you gave us a phone call and followed it up with an email, that would be the most effective way. And then knowing who the right person is to go to in that company. So if you come to me and it's a maintenance related thing, I'm not going to look at it. I'm going to forward it straight to Wayne and David, because that's their world. I don't do that world. And if it's, a leasing thing, I'm going to send it to my regionals and say, here it is, so if you don't know who to send it to in the company, call their corporate office. The ladies that answer the phone know what everybody in that office does, and they will direct you to the right person. And I think that's the most important thing, is get to the right person in that company, and then please don't pester them. But, if you've got something, hey, this is something that I think can help you, you can tell us what the price is, what it does, maybe some references of some other companies that have used it. That would be really helpful, because, I know Mary and Peggy both insinuated we are swamped dealing with 50,000 other problems right now, and dealing with income issues and courts and you name it. So if you can give us the bottom line real quick and say, this is why I think this is great for you, this is why I think it can work, and you go to the right person in that company, I think you'll definitely make that person absolutely over the moon. And then I think the other thing, Rachel, that would be really helpful is if the apartment association could kick out maybe an updated vendor list, or supplier list, as to here's what everybody does. It would be really nice for me to have an update to say, okay, this company does this and this company does that and whatnot. And a lot of things that we're having to creatively come up with besides maintenance is marketing. We used to be able to do street marketing, which was going out in person and, giving out flyers and stuff like that. We can't do that now. So I know we get all these junk emails from these random companies that do postcard mailings and internet stuff. But if somebody had some suggestions of some things we could do that was effective and was cost prohibitive, that would be that's go to a regional, in my opinion. I don't know, Mary and Peggy, what your thoughts are about it. For my company, it's go to the regional, and that's who you target on those, because they're going to make the decisions and then pass it to the managers.
Yeah, I agree with you, Amanda. I think that it's very important to get to the right people, but not be inundated, because we are inundated right now with so many other things. I have had, just in the last 2 weeks, I can't tell you the number of new contractors looking to drum up business that have been knocking on my locked door. And, we do all of our rent payments online anymore anyway. So, but we have so many other things to deal with right now that just calling, getting to the right person. I'm more than happy to give out an email address from a maintenance supervisor, and you can copy me on it, and I can make sure that he reads it, so that we can get the best of what we need, especially in times where our normal vendors don't have stuff available because they're well known and everybody's go-to. But we've been able to use new vendors to get products that we were not able to get from vendors that we typically use. And that's been the way that we've been able to do that, is through emails.
If I can tag on to what they've said, we are busier. It's amazing. We're changing policies every day. Our residents are needy. Our teams have lots going on, and we polled our team, and they said unequivocally, we're busy, stop emailing us. But they still want to get together for town halls. So it's not a great time for cold calling unless it's a time for building new relationships in new ways, like, how can my company help you right now? We want to sell to you later, but what can we do for you now? Any questions you have about what we're seeing in the market with our other customers that may help you right now, but we're not trying to sell to you right now. And I know that's hard because everybody has quotas. They have their own businesses to respond to and their own jobs, but it seems unfeeling to be calling, especially I had one particular supplier, not from this area at all, but they were checking off their box and they called me 3 Mondays in a row. I took their call every time and said, this just isn't the right time we're not doing new initiatives right now. Oh, but I can really help you. It's just not the time for that. It's the time for sensitivity. And we're even that way for our prospects right now. We're not going through our guest card normally. We're saying, wow, how are you and your household doing in this crisis? And, what can we do to help you find the right home for you right now? We're not doing our normal, and, what's your price range or whatever it is our normal script is, where we modified our script to be more sensitive to, it's stressful moving in a good time. It's really stressful right now because who's going to move you? It's just, there are all sorts of different things we have to think about. So we need to be more sensitive, and we would just ask suppliers to be sensitive too.
That is a great segue into this next question. I was going to have this a little bit later on, but this actually fits in perfectly. Have any of your suppliers done a great job of thinking outside the box of offering your on-site teams or anyone, is there any examples that you can share that you've been wowed with someone? Anyone?
I think ProSource sent out a very good email, John, about 2 months ago, I guess. Came from Josh that I thought was very helpful. It was a, hey, you got to clean. Here's some suggestions of cleaning guidelines and stuff like that. And here's some, but it had sales to it. But the way it was written, the way it was presented was, here's a lot of information. Here's what we can do for you. And,
That's
you
a
know,
good point.
one day, Josh, when we open fitness centers, we could definitely talk about that. But it was really helpful and it was very insightful. And I will admit, we sent that to all of our team. And I sent it to John, who shared with our group that we talked to on Monday and Wednesday, Fridays. Well, used to be Fridays. So that's my one example I know of off the top of my head.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, have people bought you guys lunch or bought your team's lunch or sent anything like that to the properties or?
One of our teams, they got some duck donuts from somebody, and I apologize. I don't know who to credit, but I think one of your questions, you know, is what can vendors or supplier partners do? And I would say it doesn't have to be those big gestures, although that's delightful. Who doesn't like a Taco Tuesday or whatever? But even just a note card saying, hey, we know you're going through a lot and we're here for you. Or who doesn't love chocolate? You know, really, who doesn't? But, you know, or we're trying to amuse a little bit or show appreciation to our team members that maybe we're not as mindful of other times, but just funny treats or little gifties in the mail. For some of our suppliers, during those trade shows, they had the clip-on hand sanitizers all over the place. So there are thoughtful things that don't take a lot of money, but maybe would be really appreciated without a lot.
Sorry, I had muted, but those are really, really good suggestions. And I love that it can range between an email to a lunch to a note card. I mean, I think that that's wonderful. So I think that's really helpful. Okay. Let's move on to cash flow. We have an attendee question that is, how many of the companies represented by panelists here have offered payment plans for residents who've lost their job or hours?
Plus. And I would tell you on our Monday, Wednesday calls, I would say that pretty much, I think every single company on there has. And John, how many companies are on our Monday, Wednesday call?
Anywhere from, depending on the day, 15 to 20.
Yeah, so we all are having to do something. And I think it depends on the class of your property, the location of your property, the mix of your tenants as to how many payment plans you're having to offer, what those terms look like, and the success of those. So it's a very big mixed bag.
And thank you. Another attendee question is COVID-19, how is it affecting CapEx expenditures and accounts payable?
I was going to say, I think Mary and Amanda could better answer this than I could right now, just because we're holding off on any capital expenditures right now simply because we are rolling into the REIT with our company. So we're trying to get that done, and that's kind of, we're kind of stalled with capital expenditures right now, except what's absolutely necessary. The bigger projects, we're kind of holding off until the REIT is, until we're rolled into the REIT. Mary and Amanda, I'm sure, can answer that better than I could at this point.
You or me first, Amanda?
Good.
We definitely hit the pause button March 27th-ish, but we have, because we don't want to miss opportunities to improve assets and make sure we do what we need to both preserve the asset as well as make sure we get the best rents for apartments. So all of a sudden we are doing CapEx that was budgeted or some surprise that we discovered. We were able to do some of the projects we normally would contract, like we did some of our power washing in-house that normally we would have contracted, but when our team members were not doing the the occupied service requests, we got some projects done that we just never have time for. But we are trying to catch up a little bit on those projects. We're not going crazy. A few of our properties that in the spring we were planning to increase rents exponentially to get people to move to do so we could do renovations interior. We backed off on some of those increases so that we wouldn't have as much turnover, but we're still doing renos when they turn. We just didn't push it like we had originally planned.
So we are still doing any interior upgrades that we had budgeted for, and we've only done the interior upgrades when it's a vacant unit and it's being turned. We have some larger projects that we had already paid for. For example, we are replacing cabinet front doors and door fronts and painting boxes on one of our communities, and we're 3/4 the way done. And so it didn't make sense to put a pause button on that because we've been able to get the increased rents for them. So we've continued that project. As Mary said, we've been playing catch up on a lot of our exterior projects that needed to get done. We aren't hiring as many contractors to do outside stuff as we usually do because our guys have more time. So our guys have been doing more of it. We do have a property that's got some significant sidewalk issues. So we are going to look at now's a great time of the year, and now's a great time to tackle all that. And so we're very carefully monitoring cash flow. And we're not going to sign up for a project that looks like it's going to put us in a hole. And we are very closely monitoring the situation because here we are, it's almost July. Everybody knows the Trump's $600 runs out July 31st. So there are some folks that have gotten by on that for all of these months. And now comes July 31st, the governor doesn't open up their business and they're not allowed to get back to business and they don't have the $600. We may find more folks payment plans. So we're being very cautiously optimistic about what we're committing ourselves to and being very cautious about which properties we're committing to based on right now the number of payment plans and the other situations out there right now.
Great, thank you guys. Does anyone have any guidance or advice for other supplier members who are concerned about receiving payments from clients?
We're paying
I
them.
definitely. I'm sorry, go ahead, Amanda.
I would just say we're paying everybody right now. And that's our game plan. Our game plan is we need to take care of our suppliers because they take care of us.
Absolutely.
And if we get into a financial situation, we are going to let you guys know. And if we get to that situation, I think we would start cutting back services before we would ever stop paying anybody. To me, not paying your contractors is the number one first way to ruin your reputation. So, and not take care of your folks. So that's our game plan at this moment. We're going to continue to pay everybody no matter what.
And I would definitely like to tag team on that. My tip is no business is better than bad business. And if someone misses a payment and stretches beyond your agreed to term and it's not just a one-off error, I would question why you're still working for them. I know that sounds awful, but maybe you need to extend the terms during this time, but it should be a mutual, not a me borrowing your money because I'm in a fix. And I had a landscaper one time who missed my service days for like a couple of months running. And I always paid him on time. And I said, what is up? We're getting frustrated with you. And he said, well, I'm trying to take care of this client over here. They're 3 months behind and, I'm focusing on them so they'll catch me up. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm paying you on time. You should be really focused on me and you should consider cutting your losses on, you think about all the resources to run landscaping crews and the cost of equipment and all that. So I just think have an open discussion with we're partners in this. I consider my suppliers one of my customers. I have to pay them on time. I do screw up. We screw up. We miss a payment, but I would like to think that it's unusual enough that you would reach out and go, Mary, this invoice is getting dusty. So I think you can work out good terms with if you can afford to, but people who don't pay you don't take you as important as they are. That's my advice. And especially if it's an attorney, pay your attorney. Or they'll sue you.
Absolutely.
I totally agree with you guys, because I mean, we have to pay on time because we still have a budget. You know, we budgeted, and we need to pay during the time that the work is done. If I get to there's an invoice in 30 days, somebody better be calling me, because we pay our bills on time. We can still pay our bills. And I still have a budget that I have to that I have to abide by, and make sure that everything is paid when it needs to be paid, so that I don't get whacked at the end of the month, or, the end of the quarter for that matter. I want to get people paid. And if I cannot afford to pay you, I'm not going to request your services. And that's just the bottom line.
Well, thank you guys for your candor on that. I appreciate it. And also to our attendees, if you guys have any questions, go ahead and keep those rolling in. We have another one right now that just came in. So are you all seeing acquisitions continue to take place in the triad, or are they on hold due to the uncertainty of the market right now?
Cindy mentioned on our call maybe Monday that there is still some acquisitions that were put on hold before COVID that are continuing to happen. And then Meg from Hawthorne mentioned that they're continuing to see acquisitions happen. I think everybody was nervous about multifamily for a little bit. And then if you look at the other industry, asset classes, industrial, office, and retail, and multifamily, nobody wants retail. That's a disaster right now. Nobody wants office. That's a disaster. But multifamily looks safe right now. And pending what happens in the next couple months, and depending how long this COVID thing lasts, and what the federal government does to continue to shore us up, as far as not just multifamily, but continue to shore up the country, and what the governors choose to do, I think multifamily is going to continue to be a positive asset class that everybody's looking at right now. And I would tell you our traffic is good. Our move-ins are good. We're not as hot for the summer as I think all of us would like to be, but we're still generating traffic. We're still doing move-ins. And on our home building side, we've sold 14 houses in 23 days this month. So,
wow.
I can't explain it to you. So I think you'll still continue to see those for now until the big surprise shakes up.
One of the points Cindy made, and it's true, because our clients who are buying right now, they're not the big institutional buyers, the big REITs. It's smaller groups or individual owners. So some of the deal sizes probably aren't quite as big either. But our clients are buying in North Carolina right now. So yeah, there is still some activity going on. It's just not the size or from the size owners you're used to.
Well, thank you. How can PTAA help? I know that Amanda mentioned having a new updated supplier list that could go out, which I think sounds great. But do any of y'all have any other advice or any other ways that PTAA could be helpful to you during this time?
Mary, you got anything off the top of your head?
I do. I know you guys are working on it. I do think some kind of town hall trade shows would be really cool. We can't do or I'm not interested in attending a big trade show right now. Y'all can do it, but I'm not coming. But opportunities like this, but the other direction, to hear from our supplier partners, to hear what products we may not have even realized that they had. Really, really early on in this process, one of our suppliers told us about PPE products that he had. They were all on back order, but he put us, you know, we were able to go ahead and get our orders in. Of course, we've gotten everything except for the sprayer thingy dingies that, you know, that sterilize everything. But we have been able, because he approached us and told us about something I, A, didn't know we needed, and B, didn't know he sold. So it was really helpful. So that opportunity in a bigger, and I don't know how you do it, by the way, maybe you have some optional, okay, today it's suppliers who focus on this, anybody who wants to join, and the 6 people are those suppliers. I don't know, just a thought.
No,
Not my area.
Mary, I think that's a great idea, because I could see my senior level management saying, okay, I would love to have that town hall. I think to do it in the way you're doing it right now would be great. And instead you put the suppliers as panelists maybe, and you stick the rest of us kind of, hey, let me ask questions. But if we could do exactly Mary saying, okay, today we're going to focus on maintenance products. And then, you know, now we're going to focus on, you know, different types of advertising, because then my senior maintenance guys could say, okay, I want to sit in on this, because they're only going to talk about maintenance. They're not going to talk about advertising and all this other stuff I don't care for. And then my regionals will say, okay, that's maintenance. Now let me do this. And I think there'll be a lot of benefit for that. You know, the other thing that's coming up is, you know, the new NAA lease transition, if you guys aren't aware, that affects us, which is perfect timing. And yeah, thank you, Mary, in the middle of all that. And so comes July 11th, our teams have been swamped trying to learn a new lease if they weren't on the NAA lease before then. So bear with us, please. But if there's anything you have that helps and benefits us with NAA lease, I think we would all love to hear that. I know Todd Whitlow is doing 2 webinars, one Thursday and one Friday, that my entire team is signed up for. But if, you know, if we could wait till after July 11th, Rachel, once we all kind of make that little transition, I think Mary's suggestion is phenomenal. My group would love it. And I know I would participate.
Such a good point too, to bring up the lease transition too. So I hadn't taken that into consideration, but I'm actually going to put it on my calendar. So Stephanie, speaking of all of that, do you have updates on the trade show or reverse trade show or anything fun like that?
So I do, for those of you that didn't see it, there was a survey that went out a while ago to kind of both sides of our membership about what preferences are. We definitely see a strong desire to find a way to kind of get folks together in a creative way that is not a giant trade show. So one of the first things that we have in the works is probably one of the only, you know, mostly in-person things that we really have talking about right now, and that is we're going to have a very small maintenance trade show on our own site at our maintenance training center, so we can control that environment a little bit better for the maintenance techs and maintenance supervisors to attend. And I really like what Mary was talking about. I think we're thinking along those lines for additional programming later in the fall. And we had already been talking about a way to kind of revamp our reverse trade show a little bit to kind of, similar to what Amanda was talking about, kind of separate out the different types of services, and so that the owner-operator side can kind of pick and choose, you know, which folks they wanted to sit in with, and you know, could kind of hop around almost. So we're in the early planning stages of that, but we definitely have something of that nature coming up in the fall, and we're looking at, you know, the Zoom technology to maybe place folks in, you know, breakout rooms together. And so we would love input on that. So anyone who has, you know, ideas about how they want to see that work. I like the kind of town hall version of that too. So yeah, it's all being thought about.
One thing I think that we would, my maintenance teams would probably like is, we talk about this on our call all the time, we have a shortage of maintenance. We cannot find maintenance to save our lives. And when we do find maintenance, they're young, they are very inexperienced, and we're having to teach them. So if there was something, you know, I know the CFC class is wonderful. We love to send our folks that. But if there was something, where we got these junior guys that we could say, okay, you're going to sit down and you're going to do whatever, or we're going to send you to PTAA and you're going to go to the maintenance training room for half a day, that they could just learn the basics, of things, so that our guys are not, feeling like they're hand holding that junior tech. That would be.
And if there are opportunities that some of our supplier partners are already doing, we hear from one of our suppliers every week, and they have classes that they're offering literally every day, but it's like you have to be in it when it's happening from a maintenance point of view. It's not recorded and all that. It's live. But there may be other suppliers that if they marketed it or announced it or whatever through PTAA, if that's reasonable, I don't know if that would offend a different supplier partner, but those resources have been great for my maintenance teams, especially during the time period where they weren't doing occupied service requests. They actually could sit down and do some online training. And I think some of them got hooked on it. We used to say, well, maintenance team members are too visual. They're not going to learn from online. But some of my team members have benefited. But again, there may be some of our suppliers who are offering those classes. And if PTAA could do some of the marketing for those, or could get them to agree to do some of that training right now for our team members in the short term, that would be great.
When
Rachel,
is PTAA going to be back to the office? Like, will you be holding classes soon, or have you?
Well, we're looking at 2025 to get back to the office. No, and Rachel, don't let me forget. I know Shelby had her hand up virtually, so
She just asked her question in there, so
okay.
we can.
Sorry, Shelby, I was asleep at the wheel. But to answer Rachel's question, we're proceeding cautiously, of course. The irony of all this is we opened the maintenance training center. We did a soft opening. We were gearing up to around this time of year to actually spin up an academy. We've completely redone our training room in the main office. Revamped that, signed all the contracts right before COVID hit to get all that work done. So, we did a wonderful job of expanding our footprint just in time not to use it. So, that's just the way it is. We
could use it with our socially distancing.
Yeah. I mean, the good part is we will be able to do some social distancing. We have actually done a couple of seminars, like we did a CFC. I think we've done one or two in person. We did a virtual CPO. I think we've done two of those. They've kind of been a hybrid thing, because one of the things, to Mary's point, one of the problems that we've run into is on the testing side. A lot of the maintenance classes, the testing is still done by pen and paper. So we have to proctor them. So, we've already been doing a little bit. I think it will be probably next year before we get into sometime well into next year before we can do things the way we used to. I think it'll be later this year when we will be doing in-person training of some kind. I think it'd be safe to say that'd be the earliest, would be early fall. But we're not alone in this, by the way. I saw my brother-in-law over the weekend. He works for the National Actuarial Accounting Association, and they unfortunately still do all of their testing in person. They are the nationally certified testing body, and they're kind of like the bar association for lawyers. And their big certification was going to be in April, and they lost $2 million in testing revenue because they couldn't do the online, or they had no online option for testing. So anyway, that's kind of where we are. We're in this weird, we really want to reopen, obviously, and we want to do the training in person. It's just, like Mary said, I mean, we can open it up, but we're hearing from all kinds of companies that they have national travel bans, you know, so if they're a national company, they can't do these until 2021. A lot of the affiliates aren't planning anything until 2021. I do think our training will come back sooner than our networking will come back, our in-person networking. I think that's, I think we can, first of all, training is a lower head count. You know, it's not all about the number of bodies you have there, and networking tends to be more about how many people you can get together. And then the nature of training. The challenge is, one of the things we're learning about COVID is that the longer people are in the same place in a closed environment, the more infectious it is. So what's a class? A class is people sitting together for anywhere from 2 to 6 hours in the same air. And even if you socially distance them the 6 feet apart, you know, it's that amount of time together, which is why the governor's dragged his feet on opening bars and indoor restaurants and churches. And I don't know about anybody else, I kind of find it entertaining that the two things that are being closed together are bars and churches.
And the gym.
But the ABC store never the ABC store never closed.
They're having
It was essential.
This
this
brings up this brings up a good point too, though, because as Mary said earlier about the trade show, even if you would have it in person, I wouldn't go. So, which I'm not calling you out on, but would you?
Sorry.
Do any of your companies have any sort of travel ban, or if there were classes that were opening up, would you send your people there?
No, I would not send any of our folks to any trade shows. I made the decision that when NAA was teetering about what they were going to do for NAA, I said to my group, we're not going. And then when they said, do you want to go in November? I said, no, we're not going to go in November. So we decided we're hoping next June is good. In regards to classes, if it was like a maintenance class that we knew was going to be, 2 hours or 3 hours, and it was a small group, we might let them go, but I'm not going to let my folks go sit in a room for half a day to do their housing training or anything like that. I'd rather have them sit on Zoom in the business center or close their office door and do it that way right now. But until we feel like this is a little better under control, and I know Mary and I'm sure Peggy are reading about this every 5 minutes. It feels like all the new research is coming out, and we have a responsibility as a company, as the company heads, to take care of our folks and to not, we've got to number one, contain it. And then number two, we don't want that outbreak coming back to our properties, because if you've ever had to close a property down and scramble to find people to operate your property for 14 days, it's a nightmare that I'd rather not do, and I've done several times. And I'm very thankful for phone calls and having to listen to Cindy and others who had to scramble, and then, which is great, but then when you have to scramble yourself, it's a nightmare. So for the foreseeable future, I think through the end of 2020, don't expect any of my folks to come sit in any type of class at this point, unless it's a 2-hour maintenance class, and that's kind of it.
I appreciate that feedback. Peggy, did you have anything to share with that?
No, I totally agree with Amanda, because our company has shut down anything that we were going to do. They're making plans for possibility of late 2021, but nothing within the next year. I think everybody's a little too cautious right now.
Wow.
And rightfully so.
Absolutely. Okay, well, getting back to Shelby's question, thanks for your patience there, Shelby. Are any of their properties doing anything virtually to keep your residents engaged, like any virtual events? If so, what kind of attendance are you seeing, and are they requesting anything?
We did movie night, in which we went around and dropped off popcorn at all of the doors of our residents and said, such and such movies on, and watch it, and we'll have virtual movie night, and then we can kind of chit chat about it. And from my understanding, it was a big hit on one of our properties. I know we've been doing scavenger hunts on one of our properties via Facebook and some of the other things, but I'm not as involved on the Teams aspect and whatnot, so that would definitely be a better question for one of my regionals. Sorry, Shelby.
That's fun.
I'm out of touch
And
now.
That's the part I love, but I don't get to play in very often. But I read so much, and I'm on a lot of webinars saying what people are doing. Plus, we've got apartment life teams on some of our properties, so I steal their ideas and use them. But it's everything from the virtual bingo or even the drive-by bingo. When all the rioting was going on a few weeks ago, we had somebody, and it may have been that we got the idea from our call. John, Amanda, Peggy, you can refresh me, but it was from our call, the idea of having a chalked space on our parking lot where people could express their grief as long as they met. I think it was your idea, Amanda, where they could express their grief.
It came because of a problem we had. It wasn't, I can't say I'll take the credit for it, but I think actually it was Bert's idea. Bert came up with that.
Yeah.
And that was genius.
So it was, you want to tell about what happened, Amanda? Because it was great.
We had a property in which we had a resident go and tag our Facebook page where somebody had written George Floyd, Black Lives Matter. And they had written it on the sidewalk in front of the building. And so, we didn't touch it because we were like, well, we don't know how folks are going to interact. But we said that's, what we need to do is we need to give folks kind of a space to do that. And so Bert had a great idea on our call about coming up with a space on your property in which your residents can freely express themselves. However, you come up with a kind of a resident art committee in which the residents are the heads of those, and they get to decide, what's appropriate. And so we did put some guidelines like, hey, nothing religious, nothing racial, nothing, but you can make it a kind of a freedom of expression thing. And we kind of try to do it too, to kind of keep our kids interacting and to keep our children out of trouble on our properties. And so we started actually using some of our tennis courts as our free art areas. And they're monitored by some of our residents and stuff. And I can't say I've been out to see any of them.
Amanda, you have to go out there and take pictures. What an awesome Facebook post and engagement opportunity. That is wonderful. I love that so much.
I would love,
especially on the tennis court. That's so cool.
I would love
it. It is. We copycatted. The only thing, we didn't have many rules. We were like, no foul language. That was about it. But, anyway, it went over really big where we did it, and they did post on social. I don't know if I liked it, but I like all our stuff. But I don't know what it did except for it allowed people to express. And there are just so many things because it's not just us stressed, it's people who are tired of being at home, or they're extroverts. Even introverts are getting tired of being at home. So I think anything we can do to engage our wonderful residents and give them opportunities to express themselves and have some fun that's productive. Our guys have done ice cream handouts in their masks and put it on social. And it is an opportunity for marketing. It's, I'd like to think they're all doing it for the right reason, to be nice, to take care of our residents, to socialize them. But it's kind of nice to have the added benefit of it's out there on the World Wide Web too.
I think I agree with Mary. Any suggestions, any ideas you guys have would be wonderful, because we have a bunch of families sitting at home in apartments with kids. They can't go on the playground. They can't play in the parking lots. Pool capacity is limited. And as a parent, I cannot imagine being in an apartment with 2 young kids, which is what I have, and all weekend long and all day long and going stir crazy. So suggestions, I think we would love those if there's any ideas or anything like that. And depending what the governor decides next week, that could be an extension that unfortunately a lot of our tenants are dealing with for the foreseeable future. So I know we exchange those ideas all the time, but I think our group would love to hear some more ideas you guys have.
All right. It looks like we've got one more question, I think. Would your properties be interested in doing a drive-by, throw your change or dollars for Second Harvest Food Bank?
Yes.
What a great
All right.
idea.
I think that would be a great idea.
I think that was Dale.
No, it wasn't Dale. He asked a question earlier. But that was not Dale. But color out. It was Joan.
I'll say it was just.
Yay, Joan. Good. That was really good.
Yeah.
That was really good.
Awesome. Well, I just wanted to thank you guys so much for your time and feedback and candor on this call. We really appreciate you guys. Stephanie and John, is there anything else you want to add before we wrap this up?
But no, I just want to echo thanking everybody for being on the call. Thanks to all the suppliers who attended, and for putting up with me kind of moderating my first webinar. That was, we had one hand raised and I missed it. So my apologies.
John, you had one job, dude.
I had one
You had
job.
one job.
We know what I'm not doing in the future. I've not found my calling. We know that. No, but thank you guys. Thank everybody for being on the call, and Stephanie for setting it all up. Again, of course, it was me that made the mistake, not Stephanie. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you for having us. So,
Yes.
sorry it's a couple minutes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Have a great one.